And welcome to Entrepreneur Insight. And today I'm interviewing a good friend of mine and an entrepreneur and embroidery expert. Welcome to Entrepreneur Insight. Sorry about that. Sue Oliveri. I'm Angela Wolf, and thank you for joining us, everyone. So this is going to be a great interview, and the purpose of these interviews is to help other people who might be starting a business. Maybe they want to start a business, they don't know where to start, or they're in a business and they're in a rut, a burnout maybe. I think we've all had one of those. Yes. So Sue has a lot to share with us, and she's been here for a long time. So Sue, welcome.
Hey everybody. Hey Angela. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, it's so great to have you. So, hey Sue, so let's get started. You, okay. First off, just family-wise, you have a little girl that just had a birthday a couple weeks ago.
I do. Yep. Heidi. Yeah.
Yes, and you're married. How long have you been married?
It'll be 19 years in October.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so let's just get started with when did you, well, actually, I want to start before this because you have a very interesting pre-career of being an entrepreneur. Where did you first start off with your creativity?
My first creative job was right out of college. I worked at Busch Gardens as a costume designer, and I was there for several years. And I made really awful money, but it was a great life experience. I still have friends. This was 20 years ago, and I still have friends that have remained in my life from that experience. So it's more than 20 years ago. So then I moved on from there to the sewing industry and then back into the design industry. So I was joking with you when we had just a little pre-interview for the teaser that I said, do you glue gun the outfits together? Yeah. And then it dawned on me that they're under the hot lights. That could be a really bad wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, I suppose so. I had made the joke that we use staples, and it's really true. What Heidi, my daughter, watched it afterwards, and she's like, "Staples? Wouldn't that hurt them though?" And I'm like, "They're fine." But yeah, we would staple things. But honestly, we got really fast at stitching, hand stitching, backstage.
What a cool career!
It was so much fun.
And after that, you after that, you worked at a Babylock store, or was it a dealer?
Yeah, it was a store. We sold Babylock and Janome, and I shortly after became the store manager. I taught classes. It was the first time I'd ever taught, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I was like, oh, I want to do this again. I want to do it again, and the excitement was fun to see friends' face light up when they discover like, oh wow, I didn't know I could do that. So yeah, I did that for quite a while as well. And then I did a little traveling for Babylock. I was an educator for them for a little while. And then that's what I was saying, I got back into the fashion and the garment industry. And I worked for a few years for a leather manufacturer. And I always refer to it as my China job because I went to China in 3 years. I went to China more than 20 times. I was there a lot. Gosh. Yeah, I was there a lot. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved my team. But they gave me a lot of responsibility for being so young. I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I had too much responsibility. But I pushed through it. I learned a lot.
20 times in 3 years, that would be spending like half of a year on an airplane.
Yeah.
How long is that flight anyways?
The flight I used to joke, okay, so from the time that I wake up and I drive to the airport and then the time that I finally get my head on the pillow in Shanghai in the hotel, it was 33 hours. It was just like every time it's 33 hours. And it was just tiring. Everyone thinks that we joked about this before, that everyone thinks that traveling is so glamorous, and there's nothing glamorous about schlepping your luggage and sitting next to a stranger who is doing weird things with their water bottle. You don't know what's happening. But I'm a good traveler. I like it. I don't complain. I have fun traveling. It's just not glamorous.
Okay, let's talk about travel for a minute, because I know that you went into that for a long time. But travel, it's almost an art of its own. And yes, I did think that would be so glamorous. I remember thinking, oh, if I had a corporate job, maybe that I could travel a lot. And like we said, all of a sudden you're traveling for work, you have to work. But I mean, there's a science to it. You have to have the right luggage that turns different ways. I remember having 3 different suitcases with samples, because you have to carry your samples. And people look at you like you're nuts, right?
Yes.
And my favorite thing is to get into the elevator and have there'll be somebody that'll say, so you travel light. And I said, I know, I'm only here for a day. And that really, I completely keep a straight face. Yeah. But I remember one time going through one of the big airports, and I didn't have the luggage that turns 4 ways, and I was trying to get to the little tram that takes you to the next gate, and one of my bags is outside of the tram, my legs I thought, that's it. I either have to master this science or forget it.
Yes. I know that when I was traveling for Babylock, it was always entertaining because, you know, we'd have like Babylock and people would question like, oh, what's Babylock? Oh, I used to mess with them. I used to say, oh, it's a birth control company and just fun stuff. Like, you know, but you know, because people didn't know, they don't even know people sew still. So it was funny. But I like those little things that, like, if you have your big suitcase and then you have your next suitcase that it like hooks onto each other and then you can carry that. And then, yeah, it's a science. So you're right. It is a real science.
You said that you used to travel with your, was she 2 when you were traveling? Because you said you could write a book as far as potty training on the road. So tell me about that.
It was really
not the potty training.
I'll save that for the book. No, it was really fun. So Dave would, he was like Mr. Mom, and he'd pack everything for us, carry everything. And then, yeah, we would go on the road. We traveled in 1 year. I remember 1 year we had 26 events, which basically means that every other week we were on the road. So some of it we were on the road together, and that would be throwing Heidi in the car seat, training toilet. But yeah, it was fun. I was really an adventure and some really great memories. I think I was going to tell you this, Angela, my favorite memory was driving to VDTA. It's a commercial show for the industry, as you know. And so we drove from Florida to Louisiana, New Orleans. And I remember Dave packing all the stuff on top of the thing to bring into the hotel. And sure enough, there's a little training potty on the top of it. And then Heidi's like, Mommy got to go potty. And she's like trying to climb up it. And I'm like, Dave, get her. So just fun stories like that. Now she's 8 and she is with it. She's with it.
She's going to need therapy.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
But
you know what? That's nice that you were able to do that in your career. So you traveled together. You did a lot of things together. So before that started, though, well, first off, go back to you being a dealer. I would have loved you if you were one of my dealers. I would have been in your store all the time. You would have been so much fun. I can just imagine the things you were teaching, and I'll bet you that, well, I could just see that being an A+.
It was great. The owners were very generous with allowing us to be creative, and I had some really great colleagues that I worked with, again still friends today. It was a lot of fun. I liked doing the embroidery club. We would plan little make and takes, and there was always something going on. There was always something. We're talking like it was in 2000 that it was late 2000 that I started, so we're talking like 17 years ago.
Wow, isn't that crazy when you think about the years? And you're still so young.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's funny. I'm only 25 too. No, the funny thing is, like, I think you do hit like a point in your age. So I'm 40, and you hit a point in your age, like when you say things like, "Oh, that was 20 years ago." 20 years ago. That's half my life, So yeah, I feel very blessed and honored that I've gotten to do so much in my 20 plus years I've been in the
20 plus years. All right, so let's go back a little bit. Okay. There was one period of your life where you'd quit your job, you're going to be a mom, and then all of a sudden, what happened? This is a big turning point for your life.
It was huge. And Heidi was born in May, and I had the Florida medical act leave, whatever. I took my full 3 months, and I didn't go back to work till like late August. And I kept saying, Dave, I don't want to do this anymore. We worked really hard hours, long hours. I'm like, come the end of the year, I want to leave. And so, he was all on board with it. I'm like, I have literally been working since I was 14. I'm done working. I want to be a mom now. And so that's what I did. I left on January 1st. Well, I should say the middle of December. And I thought, well, maybe I'll open up a little, maybe start sewing, work at the store, the store I used to work at. And that was fun. And then February, Dave lost his job. He'd been there for 10 years. The company went out of business, closed the doors, and we scrambled. And so fortunately for me, I'd always kept contacts in the industry. And I remember calling, the person I called was a Babylock sales rep, and I called Rose. I said, Rose, I need something. You got an event for me? You got anything where you need like serging or embroidery? And she hooked me up. She basically helped me get jobs for the first year or so. And that's how it started. And so for 4 years, Dave and I worked together, and it was fun. It was exhausting. It was nonstop. But it kind of, it forced me to start the business, make it real. So that's when we did it.
If you guys worked together for 4 years, how did that work? Because my husband and I work together, and it's always good, but I mean, some people don't mesh, some people mesh for a while. It's like, who's got the control of the whole thing?
I'm very, he tells me I'm really bossy, and so, and I don't know, I was a store manager, I've been a manager other places. I like to be in control. I have a certain vision and I want it done. But he's a really good people person. So when we would go do events and sell, I would say we were peddling our products. Oh, the ladies loved him. He's tall, he's good looking, he's friendly, he makes people laugh, but it wore on him, I think, because he's really good at his job. He's a superintendent for a huge Florida-based construction company, and I think he missed that. And so, I guess it's been 2.5 years or so. He got back into it, and it took a lot of stress off of me. Like, okay, I don't have to create something every single day, and I don't have to travel all the time. So I finally got to kind of be the mom that I originally wanted to be more, which is great. And running your business, the business. You run from your home, right? Yes, ma'am. Yep, I run it from here. I love that when you said that. There's something. I was watching our video when we did our little brief one for the teaser. I was watching. My husband said, "What is that?" It was your cat that walked behind you. Oh, how funny! Yeah. My cat died like 2 years ago, so I need like 2 or 3. That would be awesome here. If I was allowed, I'd have like 5 cats. I love cats. I think they're. Oh gosh, I do too. They're such a personality. This little kitty, though, that's Marty Cat. We've had her since about 12 years or so. We literally found her under our house. We've since moved, and right now I'm in a townhouse community because once you sell your house and the Florida market, was really bad, I said, I don't want to own for a while. I just want to rent and let somebody else take care of all this stuff. So maybe in the next year or 2 we'll buy again. But yeah. Yeah, I absolutely understand that. That was like 2008 when that industry really hit the bottom down there. And I remember thinking, I wish I'd had money to buy a house at that time, but I live up here in Michigan. that would have been really smart. Yeah, we lost a lot of money on our house, but it was better to get out of it, and we didn't have the stress. But yeah, you had mentioned the working from home. Right now, the place that we are in, this is my living room, and I can't tell what people can see, but back there's my kitchen, and this right here is my office, and then back there, I can kind of show people, that's where I do all my burning, printing, so that's my other computer. Oh, I think I lost you. Oh, no, okay. You're on there. Oh, there you go. The full screen for a minute so they can see you. So there you go. There's the kitchen. There's the kitty cat. And then there's the TV, but there's the other part of the office. That's where I do all the burning and production, I would say. And then this, of course, is my computer workspace. Now upstairs is, which you don't see, but if people follow me on Facebook Live, I do a lot of videos from the room upstairs, and that is the sewing room / bedroom / where I do my filming, everything. So I'm bringing back Sue. Sorry about that. That's okay. I hit the wrong button. I'm not with you. It's okay. I was gonna say, there was times where we had talked about renting a space out, and I just, I do everything here. I don't really ship very much. I ship very little. So they kind of came to a point where I don't really need it. One of my very best friends, Chris, we use her house if we have to cut a lot of things. She's got a big house, and we just use her space, and it's free. So that's nice. That's an interesting point, and especially because you have a young daughter at home. When I first started my business, my whole house was work, but I didn't have any children there. I had animals, but cats, but no children. And then once I got married, it was too hard for me to separate work and life. So do you have that issue? Now, at that time, I was seeing clients, so
that was really difficult. But then
totally different.
If dinner would end and I'd want to go to the sewing room and finish, you know, a project, or now it's on the computer all the time, so my head's stuck on that after dinner. But do you find it's difficult to cut off your work with your home life? I am
very structured, and you know, as anybody knows with children, they like structure. They like to wake up at the same time, you know, do the same things. And when we were traveling, it was so hard to get her to do certain things. So to answer your question, our life is very structured. Dave travels most all the time, so we don't see him very often, you know, like every other weekend. But so it's pretty much just Heidi and I most of the time, which makes, honestly, sorry, Dave, but it makes it a lot easier. I don't have to prepare a fancy dinner or anything. We can eat cereal if we want. But so to answer your question, you know, our day starts at like, you know, 6:37 in the morning, get her off to school. I come back. I try and do all my social media, check my emails, and kind of limit it to an hour. And then once that hour is done, you know, I eat my breakfast, you know, cup of tea or coffee or whatever. And then I start working. I do my creative or my whatever it is I'm working on. I do take a lunch. Dave calls me every day at noon. You better eat. You got to feed the body. You got to feed the machine. That's what he says. Can't make no money if you're dead, you know, or I get migraines. So he'll remind me like eat. So that's good. And then once I get Heidi, to continue to answer your question, it's one of two things. If she is at like after school, I work until 5 o'clock and then everything gets shut off. I go on social media a little bit, but everything's shut off pretty much. So
yeah, I kind of make the cutoff at about 6. That's kind of like when I leave the office and get home, or some days if I'm just editing videos, I might just be working from home. But it's kind of like 6 o'clock is the cutoff. Go sit outside. And that's funny what you said about lunch. The same thing happens to me. I'll get migraines if I don't eat lunch. But when you're busy all day and you're running around, it's not like we're in an office setting where everybody goes to lunch and you remember to go to lunch. It's like you're just here.
I know. And so I can be really bad. I'm really, really bad about it because, you know, it'll be like, okay, it's 11:45. I know I need to eat soon. But, you know, but it's only going to take me 10 more minutes to do this. And 10 minutes in my mind is really like an hour and a half, you know. So I really try and do that. I think that's a good advice for any entrepreneur who works from home, or even if you're in an office. We don't have a boss standing over us telling us what to do and saying, okay, you have this, you know, this, and oh, don't forget to take, you know, your 2 15-minute breaks. I don't have that. So try and you have to be in charge. You have to really own your time. You have to own your time, and you really have to be, what you said, disciplined about it, because there's so many times that, I mean, I can think of, again, the last 20 years, like you're talking about, that you wake up and you're like, oh, it's sunny out. You're in Florida. I live like 2 minutes from a beautiful beach here in St. Joe, Michigan. It's a resort town. I'm thinking today would be so fun to walk downtown and go to the beach and have a great lunch. And, but who's going to finish all that work? Well, and you know, the first time you skip that, you regret it and you won't do it again, or you might only do it 2 or 3 more times. You know, so I schedule, I have lots of female friends that are entrepreneurs that aren't in the sewing industry. And I remember one of them, her business just launched and went crazy, and where she needed like real employees and, you know, like a real place to do business. And she said that it was good advice. She said, because people will just think, oh, you know, you work for yourself. You don't really work. It's not a real job. So I remember she said, I have to schedule lunches with my friends. I schedule 1 to 2 a month. And we go to a restaurant where someone serves us, and it's very, you know, like, hey, I got 2 hours, you know, or whatever it is. And I try and do that too. Because you still have to have a life.
Somewhat of a life.
I got to tell you.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say my brother is an entrepreneur as well. And I mentioned to him, I said, hey, call me on Wednesday because I'll be at the car place waiting for the car to get fixed and we can catch up. Oh, no, that's my day off. You know, I've got plans to go and, you know, do. And he had this whole list. And so, of course, we joked with each other, oh, must be nice.
You get a day off.
Yeah.
I see somebody just popped in and asked a question. So let me just. Okay. Cynthia asks, and Cynthia, if you want to go live, I can try to bring you on here. How did your business progress from start? Let's see. How did your business progress from start to where it is now? And we kind of went through that, a lot of it. But in a nutshell, would you say that there was a period where it just happened, or is there a period where all of a sudden you're like, this isn't working for me and I have to change? Because they say like about every 5 years, if you don't change something about your career, you're going to be missing out on something, or you can't just stay stagnant. You have to evolve. I mean, we were joking about YouTube. So, did we learn how to learn on YouTube? They didn't even have YouTube. I didn't even have a computer until like 10 years ago. So, I mean, it's changed so much, and we have so many opportunities by working at home. So would you say that the way your business has changed is more about what you decided to do, or it just evolved because certain things just fell into place?
Good question. I would say that it's maybe half and half. I think I think you have to be very structured. You have to be very disciplined, and you have to have some kind of a plan. But yes, the business changed when Dave went back to work, and we had to move, and things happen like that. That changes business. Things slowed down. I got tired. I got burned out. I had to figure out, how can I still pay my bills and not travel 26 times a year? So yeah, from start to finish, I think entrepreneurs, they start off really super hungry, and you can't lose that hunger, or else your business will eventually dissolve. And I think what happened is I got burnt out after traveling like 4 years solid, and just being hungry, like, okay, we gotta say yes to this, we gotta do this. And so yeah, I think it's changed. It's significantly changed over the last 12 months. In the last 12 months, my business has changed completely. And yes, I'm looking down. I want to see how the question was worded. How did your business progress from start to where it is now? I would say that it started off very much focused on teaching live events, to pulling back and teaching less, and thankfully for the internet, Facebook Live just became a thing about a year ago. I remember you and I were at the Craftsy event, and they were talking about, this is going to be a thing, so figure out a way to embrace it. So I mean, yeah, and guess what? A year from now, there will be a whole new set of things.
Well, and it's funny. Let's talk about Facebook Live for a minute, because we both do that, and it sheds a different. For myself, I have a personality on my online classes, and depending if it's Craftsy or pattern review, or if it's the It's So Easy TV show, that's the personality of that show. I mean, you can see my personality, but you really don't see my personality.
True.
Like yesterday, Facebook Live, I hit the wrong button and shut it off like a bonehead, and so I had to start fresh. But I mean, you're there. It's every week. I could have a headache. I could be sick. I could be having a really bad day behind schedule. But everybody gets to see that, and I think it shows a side of you or myself or whoever's doing it that people can relate to. I mean, like, we're not just that person that's sitting at the sewing machine smiling and saying cheese. It's a real life, and we love what we do.
Yeah.
I love the teaching, and I love meeting the people. And because we can't travel all the time, it's so great to meet them live like that, because you start to recognize people's names, and they're from all over the world.
Yes, I see my brother just popped in, Keith from Haisu from Salida, Colorado.
Oh, exactly.
That's my big brother. Yeah, I think I'll tell you what the word, the kind of the buzzword of being an entrepreneur is authenticity. Be authentic. That's what I said, when we were talking in our teaser, that like, I'm in my living room, I forgot to put this denim jacket away. I gotta get rid of the jacket. Well, guess what, guys? I wear a denim jacket sometimes, like this is who I am. I don't pretend to be anything that I'm not. I don't try to be anybody else. Okay, this is really funny. You'll appreciate this. And of course it's backwards, but my daughter gave this to me for Mother's Day, and it says, always be yourself unless you can be a unicorn. Then always be a unicorn. Because I love unicorns. So be yourself, because everyone else is taken. And it's the same old rhetoric we hear all the time, but it's true. If you're thinking of starting a business, be yourself, because that's who people want to hang out with. And if they don't want to hang out with you, well, then they've gotten to know you, and then they can go to the next thing. But be yourself, and you'll be more successful. Yeah, for sure.
And that is very true. And the other thing is, I think you have to really just stay focused on stay focused is probably the biggest thing, because when you're creative, an entrepreneur person is creative anyways. I mean, that's just part of being an entrepreneur. But you have the business mind, you have the creative mind. When you have the creative mind, I mean, I don't know about you, I'm structured, but there could be a squirrel moment. Oh, really? I'm supposed to make 3 pairs of jeans, but I really want to finish another Delilah top. Or, I want to. There's so many options now with the creativity in all of our fields, but I think you really have to focus on what you're the best at and what you feel the most comfortable at. I can think of, I'm going to ask you this question. Have there been times where people have asked you to do a job, or you were called to come to an event, or anything in that realm where you got the gut instinct that this is not going to be so good, or you just don't have that gut instinct that this is something that's going to benefit you or you should do, and then you did it and you regretted it? I mean, how do you think, like, what would you say about a gut instinct, I guess, would be the cutthroat of that question?
I have to say that I have, again, when I was a young entrepreneur, just 7 years ago, but when I was new, I said yes to everything. And I think that's a mistake. I think even if you're brand new, I think you should say, thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me get back to you and review my calendar. It's like an easy professional way of saying, I got to think about it. I have mentors. I have several mentors in my life, and professional and personal. And I would say that I go to them and I throw the idea at them and see what they think. Sometimes it's just nice to hear another person's opinion. So yeah, I've said yes to things that, like, why did I say yes to this? And then I failed. I shouldn't have said yes to it because I can't meet the deadline. So yeah, I've learned. In fact,
The deadline's the big thing. Is if you do commit to something and then you're overcommitted, that's like doing 10 things half as good when you could have just done 7 fabulously. And that's a big thing. And I think people, especially women in particular, have a really hard time saying no. I mean, I remember going, Mom, sorry, I have to add you here because it's a learning lesson. But she used to say, I am going to take assertive training, like 5 or 6 times. And I said, Mom, just do this. Just say no. And say, no, you know what? I can't do that. But if something changes, I'll get back to you. So, I think, like you said, you had a much nicer answer. Mine's like, no, but I'll get back to you if it changes. Because then if you realize that you can do it and you think about it, then it's like, hey, I can do it. And they're much more happy anyway to whoever's offered you the job.
That's true.
So if you miss a deadline, or you do something that you really feel maybe you're not the best at, but you're still going to do it just because you feel like you have to, and then you don't do it as well, it takes, number one, it takes a lot of your time. It takes more time than doing something that you know how to do.
Yeah,
it takes your energy, and it's very negative on your whole picture of business, because as soon as you have one of those big, and I had a big one. I mean, I had same thing as you at the beginning. I was getting phone calls, and I'd say to my husband, I'll only do it if it's a really good job. Well, they were all great jobs. I mean, it was like they were coming from everywhere, and it was from the TV show. So then all of a sudden I committed to one thing that I knew I shouldn't. And I thought, well, that's all right, I'll work on it later. And I couldn't hold to the deadline, and that was it. And I swore I would never do that again, because I was so stressed out. I even came down with mono. That's how stressed out I was about that one thing that I should have said no, the gut instinct. So I think one of the biggest things for entrepreneurs, especially if they work on their own, is follow your gut instinct and focus on what you're the best at.
I totally agree. And I think within the last week I had to, and it was fun. I posed the quandary to my Facebook group and said, I need your help. I need to come up with this, and I have to come up with it by Monday, and I have to have it all proposed. It was a great opportunity. And I kept questioning the title of it, and I kept questioning it, and I'd ask like all, it's so funny. Like I just, and then finally, I remember my daughter, she's very intuitive. She's like, well, what do you want, Mommy? Which one do you like? I'm like, well, I like this one. Well, there you go. She's 8 years old and she's very wise. She's like an old wise Chinese person. Like she just she knows. Like she just knows. But so yeah, I think you absolutely have to follow your gut. If you question it, like I'd say I think you should question everything. Like if a job or an opportunity comes along, like, do I have the time for this? Is it the right fit? Will it be a good fit for both parties? Mm-hmm. And so then you have to ask somebody the questions, and then you just have to say, man, I don't feel it. I don't think it's good. I see April down at the bottom. She said, I think deadlines take the fun out of sewing. I think deadlines are the only reason I ever get anything done for work. But I think, I have to agree with her. It takes it. If you have to have the quilt done by Christmas Eve for the thing, and you're working on it and you're panicking, well then you're not having any fun doing it. So again, it goes back to planning. I'm a big planner. Like, here's my calendar. I do not do anything.
Oh wait, let me see the front of that. That is so creative.
It says, live the life you imagined. I got it at Target.
I love that.
I am like a super duper planner. Everything's super organized.
Oh, you are.
I even have another journal. Like, this is where my ideas go. And I think it helps me to just, I'm kind of old fashioned. I have to put it in writing. I have to take my pencil and I have to write it down. So I think that helps the process come together. But yeah,
that's funny you say that. In the age of where we have no books, I am a book. Well, let's just say I'm waiting to rip down some wallpaper at the house so I can have a whole wall of bookshelves so I can put the rest of my book. I love books.
Oh my God! Yeah, look behind me.
Yeah, I just love them, and there's even some that I read a long time ago, but I'm like, I just have to keep them because I like the pictures or whatever. But the writing things down is a big thing. I have a notepad next to the bed at night that sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night with an idea. That when I was in fashion design full time, I would wake up and sketch a design. And I'm trying to think of something, and the next morning I'm like, wow, this is awesome, let's go make it. But I love notebooks. I'll have a new notebook for each project, and I pick a color according to what the theme of what I'm working on. So
I like that.
I like yours.
You know, it's funny. So I think one of my favorite people I've ever known in my life was my boss when I had my China job. We were doing leather. It was a leather manufacturing company, and we were in China a lot together. And she, it'd be like our times are all screwed up because it's 12 hours difference. And so she would like call me. This is before texting even. She would call, well, I guess it was texting was there, but it wasn't like what it is now. But she'd call me in the room and she'd say, what are you doing? I'm like, man, my brain is going crazy. And she goes, oh, you got it. And she called it busy head. And so from that point on, I called it busy head. And that's why I keep, I always have a notepad. I always have a pencil next to me, always, like everywhere. Because I get busy head, or if I'm laying in bed and oh man, I should do this. I should write a blog. I should do a video on this. Oh, and I'm all excited. And my brain's going crazy. And then I have to like, if you know what melatonin is, it's like a, it's like
anybody who doesn't sleep at night knows what melatonin is.
Yeah. So it helps just like, okay, because you can't get it done until you wake up the next day.
That is true. Okay, speaking of videos, I saw your new endeavor. Let's talk about a couple of the new things you're working on.
Yeah.
You have this video that I saw, which is awesome. So I'll let you just go ahead and tell about it.
So a few years back, and this is a great example of not being ready and saying yes to something before you're ready. So two and a half years ago, I wanted to do reviews on Notions. I had been asked to by somebody. So I said, yeah, sure, okay, it'd be fun. I put it together and I wasn't ready. I didn't have it organized yet. So I just relaunched the series, and it's called Does This Notion Really Work? And it is, I try to keep them at no more than 5 minutes, or they're around 5 minutes. And I talk about the product. I tell you how to use it, or if there's multiple options, and then I kind of give you my, opinion on it. And I'm so thrilled, Angela. I just posted the first 2, but I have 6 months worth of Notions already scheduled and lined up, and I've already filmed 8, and I've got another 3 that I'm like working on the script. But it's very to the point, organized, and I am thrilled about it. And it's gotten a lot of good feedback. So
well, I can think of, what did you say, if you had a hobby, or you had a great term for it, it would be Notions, because there's so many people.
Notions.
How did I not know that was even here?
I know.
So,
I am obsessed with Notions. I am a Notions holic. I don't know how to say it. I love Notions. I have a box sitting over here to my left that's got a box full that I want to like take a look at and see if there'd be any interest. I'm obsessed with Notions. If I go to a store and I see something like, ooh, my first thing is like, why didn't I come up with that? But instead of coming up with it all, I'll teach the world how to use them.
That's awesome. Okay, so here I have another question for you. This is from Jan O'Malley. Yeah. And she says, you both have fantastic self-confidence. Any advice for someone like me who lacks in that department? That's a really good question.
It is. I think I am naturally a female empowering person. I love to watch women empower themselves. I would say that if there was anything that to help boost your confidence, it would be to every week schedule that you're gonna challenge yourself to do something different, and you're going to chart it out, progress, watch the progress. I kind of think of Weight Watchers. I've been on Weight Watchers like so many times. But I'm not on it right now. But when I was on it, that was what I liked about it. It was accountability. Every week I had to go in, and they would tell me if I'd gotten lighter or heavier. But then they would be like, "You can do it. You can be the And I liked going there because it was just empowering that you're not alone. And so I would say the same thing is for the sewing. In fact, Angela, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I have another Facebook group. It's called Sew UFO, like SEW UFO. And it's kind of like for anybody. It doesn't have to be just my designs. It could be any quilts, crafts. And I would say, Jan, join that group because we'll help empower you and encourage you there. But I would say every week you should challenge yourself with something new, or every month. Start off once a month. Say, okay, by the end of the month, I am going to da 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 da, and then be accountable for it. Tell somebody else that you're doing it, and say, keep track of me. Help me do this, and that'll help boost your confidence. Like, because once you hit a goal, like, I can do this. Okay,
right.
And then Jan, just talk to people like us. We'll boost you up.
We'll boost you up. But it's funny because I'm an extrovert, but I'm also I say that because when I'm out and I'm like here talking, but I'm really an introvert. I could spend 4 days by myself doing nothing except reading, sewing, just in my own little bubble. So I think there's a happy medium. But the one thing about gaining confidence, now, Jan, you'll appreciate this. When I was in college, I don't remember what class, I think it was finance or something, and there was like 500 people in that class or more. It's one of those big stadiums.
Yeah.
And I was in the back, and the professor called on me for something, and I'll tell you what, I absolutely had a panic attack. I stood up, my face turned red, I couldn't breathe, and I thought, okay, breathe. Now, I didn't feel like I was lacking confidence, but I was not going to speak in front of people no matter what. And now look, oh my gosh, I go to events with thousands of people. And so I think a little bit of it is, if you have confidence in what you're doing or what you're speaking about or showing, that's a big thing. And also it's the feedback from others. The Facebook Live shows that I do on Wednesday, I love doing, and it's a lot of the same people that gather in. I can hardly wait to see them. It's like our weekly coffee meeting.
Yeah.
But if they were like, oh, we can't stand you and your projects suck, well, I probably wouldn't do that anymore. So I think it's who you're around that can help build you up. My husband he's like incredible. He's always like, I'm so proud of you. And sometimes I'll just smile. I'm like, you sound like my dad. He's like, well, but I am proud of you. Things like that really make a difference. And if you're having a low, definitely put yourself around people like that have.
I agree with that. You should surround yourself with positive energy. And I'm a big cheerleader for other people. I'll be all nutty and crazy and make silly faces, and I don't want to overstep my boundaries because like teaching a live class with hands-on students. I'm naturally a very huggy feely, in your face kind of person. But when you've met a stranger, you have to, kind of step back, and because you don't know where they've been, you don't know what's going on with their life. You don't know if they have a sick mom at home, or, you just don't know what's going on with their life. But I like to surround myself with positive people. I like to focus on, I like being a cheerleader for people, but I also need a cheerleader. So yeah, Jan, get a cheerleader. And if you're looking for one, there's a couple here, join. But yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it goes back to doing something that I like what you said about that, Angela. You have to do something that you have to have confidence in what you're showing and what you're doing. And if you aren't yet there,
probably had a panic attack in that college course because I had no idea what was going on because I sat in the back and didn't pay attention.
I hear you.
Wait a minute. I think that was, speaking of finances, that's the part I hate about my business now. So
I hate that. I always say, like, I hate money. I wish I didn't need to pay my bills. Like, I wish I just, I wish our society was different, but it's not. You have to be an adult and accept that. But yeah, I don't like the finance part of it either. I literally just push it off.
Here's one for you on Facebook. George says, "You guys ever sleep?"
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I read somewhere recently. Okay, so George, to answer your question, I force myself to go to bed no later than 10, you know, plus I have a little one. I got to get her to sleep. And then sometimes I feel like I'll want to come back and I'll get an idea like, oh, I want to go do that. I want to see if it works. Or I'm really obsessed with video editing right now. So I want to come and see if that'll work. But I read somewhere that you should, if you're like a normal 9 to 5 kind of person, no matter what you're doing, at 12 o'clock, you need to shut it down. And that I don't know if I heard it on NPR or read it, but whatever I heard, when I heard that, I made that like a thing, like, okay, I'm not going to work past midnight, because I think it's something about like the time change and rejuvenating your system. I absolutely do not know the facts on it, but I know that it works. And when I go to sleep at midnight or, you know, by midnight, I feel like I'm ready to wake up the next day by 7. I've gotten my, 7 hours.
That's interesting you say that, because it actually is proven that if you don't keep the same hours, that your chance of getting sick and things like that, because I have studied that a little bit. I used to be a later night person. I like to work at night after Wynn went to bed, because he gets up like at 5 in the morning, something crazy early. Well, now I'm the one that's like, I want to get up at 5 because then I can work out and have some coffee, and I'm like almost finished with my whole work day at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I can do all the fun stuff. At least that's what I was thinking. But I'm just like you. If I don't get to bed by, even when I'm out at events, people are like, aren't you going to go out with us? Sorry. It's like I have this time clock. At 9:30, I have to be in bed, because then I'll be asleep by 10. Then I'll wake up in the morning and feel good and hit it all again. So I agree with that.
10 o'clock's usually my cutoff time. And then another thing that I've really stopped doing, we talked about this about like our phones and having an alert go off and stuff. I shut all my alerts off a year and a half ago, and it was the best decision I ever made. The only alerts that I get are phone calls and text messages. Other than that, I go back to my computer and I check things, a couple times a day. But I have to get my sleep. And the reason I mentioned that was I can't look at my phone. If you see me online, that's because I have insomnia, because I have to put the phone down, because I like the light, it's like messing with my brain, and then I get busy head.
That's funny you say that. I turned all my alerts off too. I have one past that. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, I turn the ringer and I turn everything off on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and just work in the office nonstop, except today I'll be here with you. But you can get so much done. I'll get more done in those 2 days than I do a whole week. And so it's helped me to be more productive. Then I've also gotten a little bit more free time out of it. But the alerts are a funny one, because every once in a while I'll forget to turn off one alert. And we have so many friends in Australia, and we have friends and fans over there. So they're sending you a message during their daylight, So now don't worry, guys, you can still text me because I'm sleeping. And I have the alert off and I check it in the morning.
Yeah, I think I like the Facebook Messenger. It's been a really good tool for communication with fans and my audience. I think that if you shut it off, you'll appreciate your time more. Your time becomes more valuable. Because I was thinking about this. I was thinking about our conversation, and I have the same 24 hours a day that you have, that a doctor has, that an 8-year-old child has. We all are given the exact same amount of hours in the day, and you just have to try and keep some balance and slot it out. I'm a big, obviously, I keep myself very organized, but I like list and I like to check it off. And I'm one of those people where I'll be like, oh, I organized this basket. I'm going to write that on my list and then scratch it off. Because at the end of the day, I'll be able to see all the things I did.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh yeah, I like this. Feeling good.
Check something off. So here's one then. When speaking of the responsibility of answering emails, things like that, we all have quite a few different email accounts because they're filtered for different parts of the business. Yeah. So I would find that if I check my emails from the phone, it'll be an answer that's too long for me to reply. And that speaker button on the phone, it never comes out the way you want it to say, and so you end up sending a message that isn't even in English. So I find that I'll check a message and I'll say, oh, I'm going to answer that later. And then like a few days go by and I forgot that I clicked on that. So that's another reason why I've started to just answer emails morning, noon, and 5 o'clock. And that's it. So then hopefully I don't miss anything. Because
it's smart,
when they roll in, there's a lot.
It does. Yeah, you wake up and you got 4,500 emails, and you got to get rid of all the junk first. But yeah, I on my email account I can, and I think everybody's can do this, where you've read it and then I click on unread, because you're right. I'll forget about it and I'll realize. But I'm really funny about my email accounts. I like to keep them all clean and tidy. I learned that from an old boss years ago, that if it's in my inbox, that means I need to address it. So like as soon as it's done, okay, it's done. I'm going to check it off my list, file it in my folder.
Don't look at my email box then. I think I have one account that's just for like sales and stuff like that. I use just one blank account for that in case it ever got hacked. There's nobody's emails in there or anything. It just stores stuff. My husband looks over and he goes, "You have 26,742 emails."
Girl, you need to just delete them all. Just delete all of them and start fresh July 1st. And excuse me. And if somebody comes back and says, "Why didn't you respond?" Oh, must have got it deleted. I don't know.
That is so. You have somebody in here who said, "Oh, George says I do that too." Oletta, this is on the Facebook side. "I have difficulty deciding what to charge for items I have made for someone else. Do you have any ideas for that? Do you make items for other people?"
Not anymore.
Or is it mostly product?
Not anymore. I make the pattern or the embroidery design, and then I sell that. I sell the intellectual property, which can also be very difficult to figure out the price that it should be. My best advice would be to go to Etsy. So see if there's similar things there. If it's an embroidered bib, let's just use that as an example. I would look and say, okay, all right, well, one of them's $5 and one of them's $45. Find it. But put a value to your time. People ask me this when I'm teaching classes. So I would say put a value to your time. I mean, I think what's the new minimum wage? $15 an hour. So at least pay yourself $15 an hour. Right. And see if it's
that's interesting. You asked that, or you say that about the minimum wage, because there's some stigma, and hopefully you and I and all the other entrepreneurs out there will help get rid of this and help people to know that just because you sew does not mean that your skill is worth less than another skill of any sort. And I've talked to a lot of women that they'll do an alteration or do something, and like I had one lady, she was doing alterations, hemming pants for I think $5 or something. Okay, well if that's really what you want to do, that's fine, but you're paying for the machine. How long did it take you to hem the pants? 20 minutes. Okay. Well, but still and you're meeting with people. There's a certain aspect. If you're doing it for a living, you have to give yourself a decent wage. If you're doing it for fun, do whatever. So if you're doing it for a living, when you're comparing different notes of what people are charging, make sure you're choosing someone who's doing it for a living and not just as a hobby, because if they're doing it as a hobby, they're not making any money at it. And I have helped so many different women, especially in the alteration business, where I'll say, okay, like you said, what's minimum wage? 15. Well, this is the best example ever. When we had years ago, and I put this in my book, we had a plumber come to the house, and he was there maybe 20 minutes fixing the toilet or something. Yeah. And like two parts, the parts were like $20, and his fee was $150. And I remember my husband saying to me, I said, well, how much was that? And he said, how long was he here? And I said, yeah. And he said, so what do you charge? And from that point forward, I sat down, I changed what I charged for everything. This is many years ago. And I remember thinking, I could lose customers because of this. And this was when I was doing custom apparel and alterations full time. I could lose customers, but I'm going to make 3 times as much money. And so I'll have free time then. Well, you know what happens when you charge more? Then you're wanted more, because then it puts more of a prestige to you. So you're doing the same job that you're doing before. You're just charging a fair rate that you can actually make a living at. So for people who are in the sewing or crafting industry, just remember that just because you're crafty doesn't mean that you're cheap.
No, that's true.
The price of these supplies. Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. And a lot of people will say, like, if I post a picture and say, like, hey, make this, and you look at your material, like, okay, a fat quarter. I mean, I don't know what a fat quarter costs. Like nowadays it's, $3. And then you've got your batting and your stabilizer and your zippers and your thread. And thread, I like to use the Aurifil thread, and that's like $6 a spool. And it all adds up. And you're right, you have to pay for, like, I'm looking behind you, and you've got 2 dress forms, you've got your serger. We have equipment that we have to invest in, and you don't want to underprice. At first, I remember I underpriced. Don't go less than minimum wage for sure. I used to underprice my stuff, but I think it was because, maybe to go back to Jan's thought, maybe I didn't have the confidence, maybe I didn't believe it in enough. But now my price is pretty much the same, it's standard across the board. But like, if I want to go sell my designs on a platform like Etsy, I don't do as well, because, you know, my business is at a different place than some of the people that are on there. But the consumer who's looking at it goes, oh wow, I can buy this and it's the same thing and this was cheaper. So I don't really worry about what other people are selling it for at the end of the day, because you have to make sure you can pay for your time. If you're not making the money, then it's not worth your time. Unless you just love to, you know, give your stuff away. But I don't think any of us really, you know, if you want to make money, you want to be smart about it. I think somewhere I saw a calculator on it once, you know. In fact, I might have it somewhere, but there was like a chart that said, you know, how many hours have you invested into this project? Let's say I design a new collection. It takes me 10 hours to digitize, 2 hours to test stitch. So I've got 12 hours. If I just pay myself $10 an hour, I need to make at least $120 back to get it back. And I hate to say this but you never know what's going to sell too. I had one collection. Oh, I loved this collection. It was my favorite design. I loved the artwork. I was so proud of myself. And I think I've maybe sold it in the 4 years I've had it. I've maybe sold 20. So I did not pay myself for that collection. You know,
no, you didn't.
No, but you know, you learn. But to answer the original question from your friend there on Facebook, make sure that it's something that there is really a need for too. I've learned that I don't invest my time into anything that somebody may want me to digitize. You know, I'm not going to, a widget in the hoop, and I'm going to be like, wow, that's really cool. But you know, are you going to be the only one that buys it? So right. Make sure that what you're putting your energy and your efforts into as an entrepreneur, that there is a market for it. Know your customer. Yeah. Know your customer.
That is definitely it. And Sherry on Facebook has another question similar that she has two, and they're kind of the first one I think is better for you to answer. How do you decide how long to guarantee a product as, say, a homemade purse? Well, we're not like, yeah, I don't guarantee items, but they're not going to fall apart. I mean, that's kind of a tricky question, Sherry. It depends what the product is, but do you have like?
That's a really good question. What I physically sell to people, I sell downloads, and I guarantee it forever. You know, I'm not going to let someone not be able to download their item. I mean, I'll always take care of it. I sold a CD, like 7 years ago, and I just had somebody write me back and like, hey, I just finally opened my CD and I can't get it to work. Well, probably because technology has changed. So, but I personally will guarantee my stuff for forever. But when it comes to something that's a handmade item, I don't know that I'm the best person to answer that question because I don't make handmade items. I have a friend that does make finished items, and I want to say like 90 days, like there's within 90, or maybe it's 30 days. Within 30 days, if you're not completely satisfied with your product, I'll give you a full refund, or,
right.
you pay the shipping. So maybe do a little research on what it is that you're selling. Was it Sherry?
Yeah, and I think it's a big difference because handbags you're using all the time. If you saw some of my handbags,
yeah,
I took, the luggage comes with a 10-year warranty. Yeah, 1 year I get out of them. And one of these times I was thinking this last time of bringing them back and trying to get new luggage. But you know how much we travel? That's not even realistic.
Oh my gosh, no.
I would be such a schmuck for doing that. I know how much I use it. So, a purse is a big deal. I don't know. I think you should guarantee your service. I think you should guarantee if you have a product, like I have downloadable patterns like you have, or if I've had people that'll say, I downloaded your pattern 3 years ago. I changed my computer. Of course, I'm going to send it back to you. Absolutely. But when it comes to garments, I'll guarantee the construction and that, I always test and make sure that it sews or, you can wash and dry it, things like that. But then there's a fine line of who are you selling it to? And I don't really think you need to offer something when it comes to handbags that's much longer than what a normal, you're not Nordstrom.
I agree with that. I don't know. That's a tricky question. That's
an interesting one. And then there was one more in here that, it just skipped. So I missed it. Sorry. When it scrolls through, I miss it. But it had something, she wanted to know, what were the best, and you mentioned Etsy, but do you have any other suggestions? She wanted to know from us if we have any other suggestions for sewing items, where to sell them.
Oh, well, I know that I live in a pretty big city in Tampa, Florida. It's a big town, but we have lots of these little communities. There's Carrollwood, there's Northdale, there's, Town and Country. And I know that within the different communities, there's everywhere, there's always a Chamber of Commerce or a community center. So every year, I'm trying to think, there's at least 3 where people can sell craft shows. At least 3 of them. They're usually around the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
There's one in I want to say there's one in November, and then there's one right before Easter. So check your local areas if you want to sell those finished things. And I mean, then you can also get people to be followers of you. I would say before that you go out and in the public, make sure that you have a place where they can find you afterwards. That's very easy. Whatever it is, like we were talking about this before in our teaser about your brands. Make sure your brand is super easy, that it can be pronounced effortlessly, that there's no explanation. My brand is my name, so it's pretty easy. So if you have a cute little business and you sell embroidered baby bibs, and you call it, the bib that came from the blah, 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 just make sure it's real concise and easy for them to find later on. Have some business cards or get them to sign up for your Facebook group right there while they're at your booth.
Right. And that's a nice thing, the Facebook groups now. Back when I first started doing the shows, it was mostly sewing shows, sewing expos. That's a good place to do those. There's also in Chicago, there's a thing called One of a Kind, and that is a great event. I think I've been to the one at Christmas. They might have one in the summer too, I'm not sure, but it's garments, it's home dec, it's they actually have an Etsy section. They actually have Etsy shows now too. And
I heard about that.
Somebody mentioned up here pop-up shops, and I live in St. Joe, Michigan, which is a resort town, and in the summer at least, in the winter it's not, but they have this on the bluff. They'll have different arting events, things like that, and those artists do really well, and they're not cheap because it's their trade, and they pay a lot for the booth, but that's a good place too. So, but I was going to say, we didn't have Facebook groups when I started, so it was always collect email addresses, and I remember just collecting all these email addresses. I mean, and I never do anything with them because I didn't really know what to do with them. So I would say one of the biggest things, though, is try to get your email address list bigger and have a consistent newsletter if you're going to start selling things, because they're going to want to know where you are and things like that. I tell my friends that all the time that are starting a new business, start an email list, because, and I know that it's been said before, Facebook it's an amazing monster of a company, but they could close their doors tomorrow. YouTube could close. All these platforms could close, and they have. Or change their format, where then all of a sudden you're
seeing the post.
For example,
they do that all the time.
For ours, for businesses, Facebook has already lowered the algorithm of where ours is going to reach. So unless somebody follows it and wants to be notified of it, they're not going to be. So another little trick. So I would say gather your email list and go to a few shows.
Yeah, get an email list for sure. Even at those shows, people are willing to give them. So many people, like we were talking about, you have 3 or 4 different email addresses. This is I give to people who, that for shows and stuff. So or you go to the fair.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. So everybody on Facebook is saying thanks. We are live streaming. For those that didn't know, somebody asked who we are. I'm Angela Wolf, and this is Sue O'Berry. Hey. But we are live streaming in 3 locations at this moment, and cool. On YouTube and on Facebook. So we are all over. So
neat.
I think you have a lot of great things to share today. So do you have? Wait, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. 2 more actually, and then a quick question, and then I won't keep you any longer. You have a 4-part series coming up this fall that you told me about, and I think that a lot of people would be interested.
Okay, so I meet a lot of people online or in person that they've bought their embroidery machine, and then it kind of sits in the box or it sits on the corner and on the table, and they haven't had the confidence to use it. They're afraid they're going to break it. And I understand that. I have hobbies that I've started, and I'm like, oh, but what if I, burn down the house, So I get that. So what I'm going to do is a 4-part series, and it's going to be called Embroidery Basics Workshop. And I'm going to set up a separate mailing list for it on my website. I haven't decided if it's going to be August or September, because I know a lot of people are still on vacation in August. So we might start it around the time that school starts. And in the 4 weeks, you will finish a project each week. They're not going to be any more than 20 minutes, and you're going to learn about different stabilizers, your threads, hooping, and again, every week we'll finish a project. And the good thing is it's all free. It'll be absolutely free. All the projects, everything's going to be completely free, and it'll be on the website forever. So
that's awesome.
I'm super excited about it, though.
Well, be sure to let me know as well right before that goes, so I can send a reminder to everybody, because I think that's awesome. Embroidery is such a big thing right now, but you know, and what you said, I remember my first embroidery machine, I just stared at it. In fact, I stared at it for like 2 years, and I'm not going to say the brand. It's nothing that I use at this point, so that's a bonus.
I understand,
but
yeah.
I took it out of the box after 2 years and tried to embroider, and it was a very small, it was more like not a very expensive machine, and it didn't work. And it turned out the motherboard went out. So I ended up throwing that embroidery machine in the trash, and then I'm like, I'm never embroidering again. And now I would embroider the cat if he was still alive.
Right?
Once you get rolling, it's very, very, very addictive.
Yeah, I think sometimes you just need that person to hold your hand and kind of get you over that next step. And you might be in a remote place that doesn't have an embroidery store. That's, you know, it might be 2 hours before you get to your closest machine dealer. So this will be very helpful to do. Somebody asked my website. It's my name, Suavery Design. So I just added it in there. But Suavery Designs. Yep. And I'm on Instagram and Pinterest and Facebook as Suavery Designs.
And I'll make sure that I post this on the Facebook too. So you have a great group on Facebook. Now you have one event, even though you're not traveling much anymore. Aren't you going to be somewhere this September? Which I wish I was going to be there with you. But
I know, I'm so excited. I'll be with Janet and Janet Prey, and it's going to be social, and it's in September. All the information is on the website, and it's going to be September 21st through 23rd. But I actually I'm going to be in October. I will be in Rhode Island, and in December I'll be in Ohio. And then, so I am traveling 4 times. I just bought a couple of plane tickets, and I'm like, wow, it's the first time I've done this in a while. I have not traveled for business in over 2 years, so I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
So, okay, Aletta says on Facebook that she's from the South, and we talk too fast.
Yeah, I know.
She said again, I know I'm terrible at that. I'm Angela Wolf, and she is Sue O'Very, and it's spelled O-V-E-R-Y.
Like, very good. Yep.
Oh, very good.
Oh, very good. Yes. Yes.
So the social event is, that's going to be a great event, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be there. I'll make sure that people head to your site to find about the other 2 events. Do you have any last minute advice, because we're wrapping up here, for somebody who's going to go into business?
Okay.
If there's a period where there's a burnout period, or where you end up in a rut, or would you have any piece of advice that if for somebody in that position to give them a little boost of confidence or a boost to keep rolling and not give up?
Okay, if you're in a rut, absolutely. I was in a rut 2 years ago, two and a half years ago. It is to take a step back, as if you are not an outer body experience, and decide what you really want to bring to the world, whatever it is. If it's an entrepreneur and you want to, whatever your focus is, but step back and be really clear about your intentions. People used to say like, oh, I got a business plan. I never had a business plan. I just wanted to pay the bills. I just didn't want to lose our house. We just needed to make money. And I happened to be able to do something that people enjoyed, but that's not necessarily the right reason. You want to be able to love and have passion about what you're doing. So take a step back, focus on your own work. That would be a big tip. Don't look at your competition. It messes with your head. And seek inspiration outside of your field. Like I follow some different people I follow different foodies and performers, entertainers. I follow different bloggers that do lifestyle, have nothing to do with sewing. And don't wait. I have a lot of potential entrepreneurs that will say, oh, I've got this great idea, but I want to get it all set out. Well, 5 years later, they still haven't done a thing. So my biggest advice is write it down, but don't wait. Don't wait to get that website up. Start getting your crowd, your tribe, your people. And those would be some advice.
I think that's great advice, and I totally agree. And I think one thing that you said that I think that would be a great ending is that don't focus so much on people in your own field. You want to focus on people in your field because you want to see what's going on. I mean, I follow a ton of people, but remember, social media is usually when we're at our best.
Absolutely.
And everybody looks like their lives are fantastic, and their kids are all like adorable and on the beach. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that image. That's not real life. That's like you get that. But so just remember that everybody has their ups and downs. Everybody, maybe is in a rut if it's their job or they're trying to start a business, or they're a fashion designer and they can't get their garments anywhere. Everybody has that. So like you said, step back and just look at it. And I remember there was a point in my business right before I decided to up my prices years ago with the plumber that we were talking about.
The plumber.
And so I sat there and I stepped back because I also did not have a business plan when I started. I started right out of college. I wanted to design clothes, and so I did. I mean, that was like my business plan.
Yeah.
I didn't have a 5-year forecast or a 10-year forecast. I just wanted to sell gorgeous garments for people and have fashion shows. So I learned that the fashion show is only 2 minutes of the glory of
the glamour.
fashion designer. But I stepped back and I looked at how many hours I was putting in and how much money I was generating. Now, if I was doing it for a hobby, well, then whatever. Yeah. But I was doing it for a career and I had obligations. And so I look, and so my husband said, what happens when you triple the price? What you're going to like make more money? You might lose some customers, which that's not what happened. I actually gained customers. But he said, then you'll just have more time to go fishing. So hey, that's a good way to look at it. That's always my phrase. Like if something comes up or someone says, you want to do this, and I'm thinking about it, and he said, well, if it doesn't work, you could always go fishing. So
I like that. I like that. I think that's good. That's good. Yeah. It depends on what your focus is. For me right now, my focus is to touch lives. I want to help those that need the assistance. I want to bring them, my tagline is fast, fun, and adorable projects. That's pretty much what it is. If I can't get something done in about an hour, I get bored real easily. So that's what I sell, is I sell that the project's going to be fast, fun, and it's going to be adorable. It's going to be happy. You're going to have fun.
I love that. Happy. Well, I want to touch lives too, and that's why I'm so glad that you came on here, because I hope that our interview today inspires others, regardless if they're going to be an entrepreneur, if they're starting a small business, or even if you're working for somebody else. It'll just hopefully give you the oomph to go a little bit further. So, Sue, thank you so much for spending your time today. Everybody on Facebook is saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And I see people in the group saying thank you. This will be live on Facebook and YouTube, and you can reach Sue at, say your website one more time, Sue.
It's SueOveryDesigns.com.
That is spelled SueOvery.com. And you can find me at AngelaWolf.com. No E at the end. It's wolf like the animal. So, Sue, it was great talking to you. I'm wishing you much success in your business, and I cannot wait for the embroidery event this fall.
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. It was an honor to be on here. I can't wait. I've been looking forward to it. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Keep in touch. We'll have to do a recap at the end of fall and see how everything's going.
That. I like
All right.
that. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Everyone. Thank you for joining us. We love you.
Okay. Bye-bye.